All right. So, hey, everybody, this is my first work by design.
Woohoo.
And and as fate would have it, I tried this once before, in all honesty, and we got to the end of it with another friend of mine, and I said to her, I was like, "Man, that sucked." And she laughed, and she was like, "Well, I don't know if it sucked, but it was really stiff, and that's not you." So, going into this, the impetus, just really quickly, because this is the first time, the impetus behind this is that I'm an author and an artist and an IO psychologist, and I'm all around just compulsively curious and creative in a lot of ways in regard to what I do and how I think. And so, fast forward in time, I'm talking to my dear friend Jose Angel Castro here, Angel Castro, and we met. Gosh, we've known each other for over 20 years now, and we met early on in our journeys in life. I think bringing art to work, designing our lives, designing our work, figuring out our art and how we would make a living from it. And it's not easy. And so in speaking with him, he really helped me unlock some of my own hesitancies about moving forward with this idea, which I had almost a year ago now, and I'm just now getting into. And to that point, Jose, who is my dear friend, is also a very, very gifted teacher, artist, entrepreneur. He is the founder and lead instructor at the Now House Education Group, which is an organization dedicated to providing timely and relevant, compelling educational experiences aimed at making life a little better. And he's being humble. I think he makes it a lot better. I think that life and love and learning beget better lives and lots of learning and deeper, more satisfying love. He is currently teaching Life Master, the practice of adaptive satisfaction, a 12 module course which offers keys to coping with our present global and individual circumstances, as well as a path forward for the future. So, with that beautiful introduction, which is such a small part of Jose, who speaks, by the way, 6 languages now. How many languages do you speak?
I don't know.
I know. When that shit got over 5 and I barely speak one, I was like, whatever. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. So, and we'll probably through this talk about many of your talents, but I want to first ask you, what does work by design mean to you?
When you first talked to me about work by design, it really hit me. It hit me right away because I feel like part of the journey of being an artist, a creative, um, that's kind of like a this interesting dichotomy for me, especially, but I think that's true for many artists and creatives. Is we tend to be split.
Mm,
We tend to be split the creative side versus, and if we want to get our creativity out in the world versus the side that actually has to work at it,
yeah.
right? And the side that's creative is like drinking water. You don't really have to worry about that. That's sort of a universal truth. It just happens. You can't stop the flood of creativity. And that can be both the bane of your existence and the fuel and driving force of your existence, right? Um, so for me personally, in the work that I do, in wanting to get my work out into the world, in wanting to contribute to the world, I also had to figure out as an entrepreneur, as the entrepreneurial side, what to do with the mundane day-to-day grind of getting your work out there, talking to people, selling your work, all that business, right? Um, so for me, work by design was this sort of epiphany that I had probably about a decade ago now, which was to shift my mindset so that the mundane became part of the creative whole.
Mm,
So the work of building a business, the work of building brand, all of that it's a giant puzzle of creativity. So the mundane then simply becomes brushstrokes on that canvas, which
Mm.
makes it, which for me just makes it easier to do, because
Yeah.
that's where I would often find myself stuck,
Mhm.
is, you know, you, as a creative, you're often kind of a flibbertigibbet, right? You're a butterfly.
Yes.
You fly around landing on this thing, and you're like, oh, pretty flower here, and then, oh, pretty flower
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
right? Um, which makes it really difficult to kind of knuckle down and do the day to day.
Yes.
Also,
Even
you
though
get
you can do the day to day,
absolutely,
you can do it, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're totally capable of doing the day to day,
Yeah.
completely capable of doing it. It's just that, for me personally, what my mind and sort of, I mean, I don't want to talk about it too like ethereally, but my soul um,
Mhm.
wants to find new stuff. Wants,
Yes.
if I want to create something, my brain goes to that creativity, that particular project. It creates it, and then it wants to move on to the next.
Yes.
Um, So, but what it takes to actually get my work out into the world is sticking to that thing and seeing it
Yes.
to the fullest of its fruition,
Mhm.
right? So this way of looking at it, for me, looking at business as art, really has completely changed the way that I work in my day to day. Because now, even though the mundane is the mundane, and everybody feels the same way about writing papers, or writing press releases, or writing copy, or whatever it is, doing taxes, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But the moment I can set my mind to, this is part of that creative process, is the moment that becomes less mundane. And even I find myself sometimes excited about doing those types of things, because I know that each brushstroke leads to the the final product on that canvas.
Yeah.
You know.
I think something you said, and I don't know that you meant to put the words in this order, but it really struck me, is that you said business as art. And what immediately strikes me about that is that perhaps you'll relate to this. I know that I've struggled with this a little bit in my journey when I decided I wanted to get a PhD and balance out, right, my
Hmm.
and kind of move more into that other side of my brain that is very analytical. I began to look at my art as business.
Mm.
I find that to be the thing that kind of almost strangles my creativity. It's not that art and business can't integrate
Coexist.
and
No, yeah,
coexist,
absolutely,
right? It's
absolutely.
not that you can't have work that you love by design. It's not that you can't do design and all of its different elements as work and love it.
Right,
I mean,
right,
it's even when you're like, even if you have like the cool, like this kind of job where it's just like, oh, I just paint all day in order to make a living at it. There's still the work to it, right? Which you talk about, but it's almost the order of thinking, of making the art as the business rather than the business is the art.
right.
You know what I mean? Am I making sense?
Yeah, yeah, and for me, that's very deliberate, and it is
Yes.
in that order. The business is art.
So how
Um,
did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, just because because what I think is important for me is for me to embrace who I know myself to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I found myself swimming against the tide when I thought of my art and creativity as business.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I reversed that, that's more my nature. My nature is to create things, and creating business is exactly that. It is an act of creativity, even though
Yeah.
we don't think of it that way, because we often think of creativity only in terms of painting or dancing or acting or
Yes.
the arts,
Yes.
quote unquote. But
Yes.
I mean, a mathematician can be an artist
Absolutely. Absolutely.
once they start to formulate in the language of mathematics. It becomes art.
Yes. 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 And I wonder if it's like the difference between sometimes between startup culture and then further down the trajectory should that startup move into a corporation?
Right.
That's where what happens. It starts out as art as business, whatever that idea is, you know, an app, whatever, a yoga studio, whatever it is, it comes out that need to create. That is what creators are. That is what artists are, right? It's born out of this need to create and to fill in that white space that you've identified, that there are all these dots, but there's something in that white space that hasn't been addressed, hasn't been fulfilled, hasn't been manifested in
Right.
this unique way before, right?
Right.
That gives rise to a startup, whatever that industry is, or a new formula that's been put together, a theorem by a mathematician. But then you get so attached to it, you know, well, it has to grow. So if you want it to grow and you want to make it your work, so then it grows and it goes down, it goes along its path. And then that's when it flips, it seems, and it becomes just about the business is put before the art. And then it starts to lose some of that magic.
Right.
And that's why, you know, and I debate this sometimes with friends of mine who are in the tech sector who, as they've gotten bigger, they pine for their old startup culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I argue sometimes, and I'd love you to weigh in on this because I think it applies to anyone, whatever your modality is. But they pine for these days of their startup culture, but now they're at 150, 200 plus employees. Now they have to think about their art as a business on a whole different level because they're responsible for mortgages and healthcare and workers' comp and taxes and pension, all this stuff, right? And I don't know that you can ever go back to that startup culture. Not that you can't still have some magic, but I wonder if further down that line you can still maintain as much of it. I don't know. What do you think?
Here's what I theorize. First of all, I think that startup culture is about things being driven by one principle, and that is the principle of passion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that eventually what tends to happen is we work the passion out of what we're doing.
Okay.
And I theorize that if we do so deliberately, if we choose to do so deliberately, we can hold on to that passion even through that sort of breaking wall of now I have all these responsibilities besides, you know, the passion of what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a very specific, a very deliberate action to hold on to that feeling, to maintain that feeling. And I think that has to do with the choices that we make as we go along. I honestly don't think that and we see the desire for that all the time now. I honestly don't think that passion and success on one level of success, let's talk about just the sort of financial monetary level, because I think there's another level that's really important too that I think we can maintain. But if we talk about that monetary level, I don't think that that's mutually exclusive from passion. I think what it is that we often grind ourselves out of our passion for what it is we're doing. Right. And I really do believe that it's just a matter of, in your heart and mind, wanting to maintain that passion that would allow it to stay in the work.
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, let's say I have a painting that you made for me, right? And it's of a feather, right? A peacock feather. Now, I actually was there when you were painting that. I actually watched that process happen. And you told me what you were going to be painting.
Yes.
But when I looked at it, when you were first working on it, I couldn't see that feather.
Yes.
You could, though. And each stroke that you made released that feather from the paper that you were working on. Right. And I think that sort of that concept can be brought to our work. Each freaking, paragraph that I have to write, or each bio that I have to do, or each time I have to go to the tax man, each thing like that is a stroke in the canvas. And what I'm trying to get to, as you would have been, is you were trying to get to the picture that was in your head, the intended end result.
Yes.
Right? And I think in our work, we should maintain that. And I think oftentimes we lose sight of that intended end result, because the intended end result is not to be grinding yourself into the dirt 24/7.
Yeah.
Right? And I think things like, things that fall under self-care, maintaining your mental and emotional health, taking breaks, allowing and allotting space for other people to take responsibilities for this. I'm actually going through that right now.
Yeah.
Because I've been a one-man army for so long, and now I'm doing a piece of work that I can no longer be a one-man army. So I have to embrace being able to hand things off to people and trust that they will get done, right? Which are all parts of the whole canvas.
Yes.
And then we have which addresses the second part of success, I think. And that's part of what it is I'm teaching, and that is success of satisfaction. Over time, am I satisfied with what I'm doing? Right? Did I start something passionately, and now here I am 5 years later, and it's making $1 kajillion, and I'm completely unsatisfied because I've lost the passion for it? Right? How do we maintain that? What do we do to maintain that? I think we do a lot to maintain that by taking care of ourselves.
So when you talk about deliberate action, which you're talking about now, what are some deliberate actions? And let me preface this by saying, I freaking hate the 10 bullets of things you should do.
Oh yeah, no.
Life is not a friggin' list of bullets. And let me tell you, just like a grocery list, sometimes it's really good to know when you go to the store, you need bananas, sugar, cayenne pepper, whatever it is. Like it's annoying and yet in certain situations necessary. So I will ask you, my friend, when you speak about deliberate actions, can you, this may be a personal challenge to folks who get as esoteric as we do sometimes when we speak. What are some bulleted deliberate actions that you can share right now that someone who's listening to this or watching this can literally write down almost as a grocery list for their own well-being, their work, their life, maybe even, Mr. Life Master?
Okay, so here, this is interesting. This is interesting because, like you, I don't believe in those bullet points. Right? And it's for this reason. It's for this reason. It's because life don't work that way. All you can do, I think, is set out intentions. You can set out like you do with a painting. You can set out what you want it to look like in the end, what you want it to feel like in the end. But you as an artist know that the first stroke might not equal the last stroke.
Yes.
And what you had in your mind may have shifted, may have pivoted along the way to become something else, which you then see is more beautiful than what you intended in the first place. So I think the top thing that I would say to people is, I would say, learn to embrace the fact that you make a choice, and that choice can either end where you want it to, but if it doesn't, you can make another choice.
Okay.
Right? I would also say, like I said before, take care of yourself. That part you can do. You can take care of yourself. If you need something, if you need something because you can't untie your personal self from your work self. So if you look after yourself, you have more to give to your work. If you don't look after yourself, you reach burnout, you reach frustration, you reach what, even if your business succeeds, you feel failure.
Mm-hmm.
So things like finding practice, for instance, and I know what people are going to think when I say finding practice. I know it. I know it. They're going to say, oh, I don't have time for yoga, or I don't have time for Tai Chi, or I'm not interested in that sort of thing. Well, practice can come in loads of different ways
Yeah.
that aren't necessarily like the big ancient four, you
Yeah.
know, yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, it, right? It doesn't have to be, you know, that I go sit in front of a cave for 6 months, you know, in lotus position. Finding practice can be if you're really good at basketball and you're the type of person who will go to the basketball court by yourself in the rain and shoot for an hour, and that makes you lose time, that's practice. If you're the type of person who, a really good friend of mine said he spent 3 hours the other day um, on equations. He's a mathematician, and he lost himself in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's practice.
Yeah.
So finding something that allows you to sort of ascend into the depth of suspension, of losing time, of, you know, I went in feeling one way, I came out feeling better. That's practice. So finding practice and taking care of yourself personally, I think, is a huge thing. And
Yeah.
all of the things that all of the sort of bullet points that I would give all point inward,
Yes.
right? So it's not about, you know, 5 steps to better productivity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not about 5 steps to happiness. There is no magic pill. There's only
Yes.
practice,
Yes.
right? There's mastery is not about getting things perfect all the time. Mastery is
Yes.
about showing up when you don't want to, growing all the time, thinking about intending to grow all the time. That's mastery.
Yes.
It's not all of a sudden I'm there and I have nothing else to learn. It's quite the contrary. And all of this stuff is hard, right? So usually when you hear that bullet pointed thing, that 5 steps to happiness, it implies that it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it also implies that it's going to be finished.
Yes. That's a good point. Yeah. And it never is finished.
It's never finished.
I love saying you're not done till you're dead. And then I don't even know if you're done then, but I'm just saying, as far
And
as
even then,
as far as we
yeah,
know,
yeah.
you're not done till you're dead. You might as
As far as this particular meat suit,
well.
that's exactly
Absolutely.
right. Exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up, first of all, where can people find you? How can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at the one MRC, the number one MRC, the one Mr. C. My young teenage charges all call me Mr. C, so that's my Instagram. You can also go to thenowhouse.org. It's spelled exactly like it sounds, THENOWHOUSE.org. I'm on Facebook and all the other stuff.
Okay.
And people can always also email me at info@thenowhouse.org.
Great. And is there anything you'd like to share or express in parting that you might want people to have to take away?
You know, especially in this time,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I would reiterate that take care of yourself. This is a time where we're feeling a whole bunch of everything all the time, and rightly so. And I think that we need to give ourselves a break. And if you feel delicately, treat yourself delicately,
Mm.
right? Um, and everything that you're feeling is valid because we've never been in a place like this before.
Mm.
And the anxiety that people are feeling and all the stuff that people are feeling, they're feeling because it's very difficult to see what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's one of those things, you know, people are always talking about be in the now, be in the now. Well, this is the now. This is what it feels like,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
what happened before isn't particularly relevant, and I can't really see what happens next.
Yeah.
We're deep in the now right now, you
Mhm.
know. So in this moment, if you feel it, it's valid, and take care of yourself. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to take a break. It's okay. That's what I want people to know.
Well, thank you. And I will just say that part of my self-care is having friends and sisters and brothers. You know, we always joke you are my brother from another Mr. and Mother. And that is the truth in so many ways. And part of my self-care is reaching out to you and to other people who know my spirit and my soul, even if sometimes I feel like I've got a late touch, got a late connection to it. So thank you. Thank you for
No, thank you.
going with
And,
me.
and I have to say too, I can't express enough the gratitude that I have for having you in my life.
Oh,
We've been really fortunate to have met each other
hmm.
and to be sort of co-conspirators in each other's lives, and I really love that, and I love you so much.
I love you too. Thank you so much. All
You're
right.
welcome.